Well, sorry, I'm in the middle of a bar mitzvah. So I guess instead of listening to a speech, I get to give a speech. I don't know which one is better. Um, okay, so before we start, again, we are learning the Ilui Nishmas, Yehuda Shimon Zochron Baruch Ben Yeshua Yosef Moshe, and Mordechai Chana ben Reb Chaim Yitzchak Zev, and Aryeh Zochron ben Yeshua Adam Zalman. Also tonight is the yard site of our friend Vicky. So many know her, many don't. It's not her yard site, her mother's yard site, Toba Chava Bas Elimelech, otherwise known as Vicky's Delights. She must have been a very special lady if she was zeicha to have a daughter like Vicky. And we're learning Le'ilei Nishmasa, and her neshama should have an aliyah. And it should be a schus for the learning we're doing. It should be a schus for Klal Yisrael. Again, if anybody has any questions, just please post it in the chat section, and we'll try and get to it. So we're in the middle of Hilchos Berachos, and again, just as a preface, Hilchos Berachos is very confusing. It's not like Hilchos Shabbos, which is quite confusing too. But we have definite psukim that we can go with, even though sometimes there's machlokes. We say we go with this opinion, etc., etc. By brachas, there's a concept of making a bracha that's not necessary. Saying Hashem's name when it's not necessary is not a good thing. So that's why, even though we'll have set psukim, but we're always going to try and get out of putting ourselves in a situation where we're making a bracha that potentially could be an unnecessary bracha. So that's why we're going to learn quite a few times. I mean, most of the time, we're going to learn that there's the best way of doing it, and then there's a little less of the best way, meaning not as good, and then there's what's the basic halacha, right? So, but that shouldn't be confused. It shouldn't be confusing to people, or because, and meaning we're going to try our best not to make separate to make brachas that are unnecessary, but we're meaning I want to say it in a nice way, but meaning it can cause a lot of nerves hearing about oh, let's do this, let's try not to make brachas unnecessarily. So it can cause a lot of anxiety. Let's call it anxiety, OCD, anxiety. I don't like to throw around those terms because there are unfortunately people that suffer from such things. We throw around these terms like, oh yeah, OCD, but it's a real illness, OCD. So it's not something that should be used, just off the cuff. But anxiety, which is also real, it shouldn't cause anxiety, and none of this should cause anxiety. So therefore, if I'm saying something and you find that it's causing you anxiety because of what we're saying, so then be in touch with me, and we'll clarify exactly how it should be approached. I hope that's clear. Like Torah and halach is not meant to cause anxiety. We just try and do our best to keep the halacha properly. Again, I just keep reiterating it, but it's important to know that in Hilchos Berachos specifically, because we don't want to say Hashem's name unnecessarily, so therefore we try and get around anytime there's a suffix, what we call a suffix situation, we're going to try and do our best not to have any unnecessary brachas. Now, just parenthetically, just to say something simple before we get involved with the complications, and this is something that many people are not aware of. When we make a bracha, a bracha on food or drink, we're supposed to be holding the food in our hand. If you're a righty, it should be held in the right hand, and if you're a lefty, it should be held in the left hand, right? So if somebody's going to take an apple or supper, and you're eating steak or whatever it is, then the food, even though it's okay if the food is in front of you, but lechatchila, the food should be held in the right hand. And the main reason is because you don't want any sort of pause in between making the bracha and eating. It goes without saying that we shouldn't signal to people after we make a bracha. Right when we make a bracha, then you're supposed to eat. The same way with kiddush. Nobody talks until they drink the kiddush. So it goes with all brachas during the week, and the item that's made, the bracha is being made on, should be in the right hand. Or again, if you're a lefty, it should be in the left hand. And one should not pause before putting it into the mouth. To the extent that if you make a bracha on something and then it falls out of your hand, then there's a whole shaila whether you should remake the bracha before you eat it. So again, so it should be in the right hand, and not meaning it shouldn't be in a way that you're putting the right hand because you want to eat the food as fast as you can and look like you're a glutton. That's not what it is. It's just supposed to be, first of all, helps concentration, that it's when it's in your hand, and B, it makes it that there won't be a pause between the bracha and the achila. As we know, understandably, that if somebody makes a bracha and they end up talking, then you have to make the bracha again. Right? That's because that's considered a hefsek. And by kiddush, but once we're on that subject, then by kiddush, you are yotze kiddush. There are many people. This is a big misunderstanding. People think that if they talk after kiddush before they drink the wine, then you have to make kiddush again. That is not the case. You are yotze your kiddush. It's just if you want to drink the wine, you have to make a bar priya gofen again. But you are yotze kiddush. The halacha is very clear. One does not have to drink the kiddush. Only the person making the kiddush has to drink kiddush. Everybody else sitting at the table does not have to drink kiddush to be yotze kiddush. It's better to drink the kiddush, but it's not required. So therefore, if somebody by mistake talked after the person who made kiddush, and then they are 100% yotze kiddush, it's just that they can't make a bar priya. They can't drink without making a new bar priya gofen. And then the same thing goes with havdalah. I find it more in havdalah. People are antsy by havdalah, and before the person who's making the havdalah drinks, people talk. I get the shaila almost every Motzei Shabbos that somebody talked before the person drinking the havdalah drank the havdalah. Do they have to make havdalah again? It's not even a shaila. You do not have to make the havdalah again. Okay, so that's just some basic, clear, I hope clear halacha. What is the isser of saying Hashem's name levatala? It's based on a pasuk of Lo Sisa Shem Hashem Lashav. Hashem's name should not be mentioned for no reason. So when you make a bracha on something and it was not necessary, then Hashem's name was mentioned for no reason. There's differences between a bracha levatala and a bracha sheina tzricha. Meaning a bracha levatala is that you just said a bracha for no reason whatsoever. Bracha sheina tzricha was it's a valid bracha, but you don't need it. Meaning, okay, I don't want to get into that. It might take up too much time. Okay, so now getting into I think the reason why many women wanted this subject is because sitting in the kitchen and you're snacking on food, and then you forget to make a bracha achrona, or you leave the kitchen and you go outside and you come back in, or you go to a different room and then you come back in, etc., etc. These are constant questions that come up. Or you go run and do a carpool and then you come back, or you have a coffee in your hand and you're drinking it and then you take it to the car. You need to make a new bracha, etc., etc. So, I mean, it's I'm not going to say it's complicated halachas, but it's I don't know, rigorous. It's technical. It gets technical. So we'll first start, and so it'll take a couple of weeks to get through it all. So we'll just start. I mean, we started a couple of weeks ago, but just to continue with how much time do you have to make a bracha achrona? We'll start with that, and then we'll move on from there, because I think that's the more simple That's the more simple case, and then we'll get into the changing places, which I can't imagine we'll cover tonight, but we'll try. So what's the maximum amount of time that you have to make a bracha achrona, right? It's very common. You sit down to supper and then you get distracted and then you realize, oh, I did not bench. I get this question almost every day from people that they washed and then they realized they didn't bench, or they made a mezainis and they realized they didn't say alamichya, or they were drinking coffee throughout the day and they didn't say a bar nefashis. So how much time? So that's the first thing. How much time do you have in order to make the bracha achrona? Now, the reason why this plays into the entire subject, and we're starting with this, is because there's something called shina maka, meaning when you give up, and I don't know, give up is not the right word. When you are basically, when you're done with what previously happened, and then you would need a new bracha. For example, why don't I make a bracha once a week? Why don't I say Hamotzi on Motzei Shabbos, and then I'm having in mind that I'm going to have bread for the rest of the week. It's all covered by my original Hamotzi. Right? Why not? I'm having Hamotzi Lachem and Oretz, and I'm having that in mind on all bread that I eat for the rest of the week, or the rest of my life, for that matter. Right? So we all know that can't possibly work. But how do you know when it stops? So basically, when you're in your mind, you're done eating, then the bracha expires. Let's call it that. The bracha expires. Once you're done eating, then your bracha is expired, and the next time you eat, you're going to need a new bracha. Sometimes those expirations happen even if that's not your intention. For example, if you leave the house, depending on what type of food. Again, that's not going to be tonight's subject, but that's what it's all based on. It's all based on when has your original bracha expired. Sometimes it expires based on what you've decided. Sometimes it's based on what halacha says your bracha expired. In the same vein, you can have that for bracha achrona, and you could have it for bracha rishona, meaning how long do I have to make how long does my bracha rishona expire, meaning my shahakal? Can I just make a shahakal in the morning and let it go for the entire day? And also, how long do I have that my bracha achrona expires? For an example, let's use not for some reason not as common an issue, but how long does somebody have to make an asher yotzar after using the restroom? How long does somebody have? So the halacha there is pretty clear that if you have up until the time that you feel you need to use the restroom again, you're allowed to say asher yotzar. So if you went to the bathroom in the morning and then you got distracted and then you realized you did not you didn't say asher yotzar. So as long as right now you don't feel that you need to use the restroom again, then you're allowed to say asher yotzar. If you already feel that you need to use the restroom again, then you cannot make an asher yotzar. You just use the restroom and you make an asher yotzar. It's interesting that according to Svardim, I think the Svardim hanhaga is not to do this, but according to the Shulchan Aruch, normally the Svardim go with the psak of the Shulchan Aruch. Ashkenazim go with the psak of the Ramah. The Svardim say that if you forgot an asher yotzar, you say after the next time using the restroom, you say two asher yotzars, meaning it's called what we call in halach, it's called tashlumin. You're making it up the same way that if somebody didn't daven shachris, they daven two minchas. If you didn't daven mincha, you daven two ma'ariv. If it wasn't done on purpose, meaning if it was it wasn't a choice, then you can daven twice. The same thing. The Svardim say that you would say two asher yotzars. Ashkenazim don't do that. If you feel you needed to go to the bathroom again, then you make one asher yotzar, and that will cover the previous one. Obviously, one should not do this, and therefore, immediately after using the bathroom, one should say asher yotzar and not tarry. Even if you tarry for a minute or two, you get distracted, and then you forget about it. And asher yotzar is an important bracha, and it should not be said while walking around or while taking care of other things either. It should be said standing in one place, lechatchila, and obviously not while doing anything. Yeah. So the same way that we see that Hashayotzer expires when the person feels they need to go to the bathroom, now that expiration could be anywhere from 5 minutes to 5 hours. Right? If 5 hours later you realize you didn't say Hashayotzer and you still don't have to go to the bathroom, you can make Hashayotzer because your time has not expired. So the question is, do you need, how long does your bracha rishona take to expire before you're going to need another bracha rishona? Right? So we're going to say, before we continue, we're going to say that lichatchila, the best thing to do is that when you know at least you finished your coffee and you're not sure if you're going to have another coffee or not, the best thing to do, to be halachically, the most halachically acceptable thing to do, is to make a bar nefashos on your coffee or your tea or your whatever, your water. Make the bar nefashos, and then if you get thirsty again, you'll make a new bracha. Right now, that's not, you're going to say, well, maybe I'm going to be thirsty in 5 minutes and I'm going to make a new bracha. Maybe that's a bracha that wasn't required, because had I not made a bracha achrona, had I not made an after bracha, then I wouldn't need a new bracha rishona. That is true. So I would advise that for at least 15 minutes, don't drink. Meaning, if you think you're going to actually drink again after you finish your coffee, then don't make the bracha. Or if you do make the bracha achrona, then wait 15 minutes. It's not that hard. And then, meaning 15 minutes is already a substantial amount of time, maybe a little bit longer, and then you can make a new bracha rishona. But the best thing is that if you're not sure if you're going to be eating or drinking more, than make a bracha achrona, and then you will be fine, and then you'll make a new bracha rishona. Right? I tell you where this comes up on Yom Kippur. So I don't know if that goes on in the women's section, but in the men's section, so many people do it because you're supposed to make 100 brachas a day, which is debatable if that applies to women or not. But again, I'm trying to stay on the subject matter here. But a lot of men will try and make brachas on besamim, throughout Yom Kippur. First, it helps them fast, and second of all, they want to make brachas. So, but so they come, and then in the middle of Musaf, they take a smell, and then 5 minutes they don't want to smell again. Did they make a bracha? Did they not make a bracha? So if they had it in mind, then they don't have to make another bracha. So the best thing to do is have in mind that I'm making bracha right now on this besamim, and it's not covering my brachas later on. And then you would definitely need a new bracha. Now again, I wouldn't advise to do it 5 minutes later, but as long as you have in mind when your bracha expires, then the bracha automatically the bracha will automatically expire. But again, if you're not sure if you're going to drink more, the safest thing to do is make a bracha achrona, and then if you get thirsty or hungry again, you make a new bracha rishona, and that's the safest way. So now there's going to be a difference in how long it expires. I'll get to all the questions being posted soon. I just want to make sure we get a substantial amount done, because I can't go overtime tonight. I apologize about that. So there's a difference between the expiration on food, and there's a difference between the expiration on drink, and there's a difference between, even with food, it can make a difference in what the situation is. So basically, there's something called shir ikul. Ikul means digestion. What is the shir of digestion? Once you're past your shir of digestion, then you can no longer make a bracha achrona. When I mean bracha achrona, it means an after bracha. I'm assuming everybody understands what that means. Meaning, if the most common is bread, so bread, we say that the shir ikul on bread, the shir for digestion on bread, is 72 minutes. You have 72 minutes to bench on bread. So if you washed on bread, you finished eating, the 72 minutes starts from when you're finished eating, not from when you start. And you finish the bread up until 72 minutes is not even a question. I mean, it's a question, but it's not a problem, is that you can say Birchas Hamazon up to 72 minutes. However, if you're still full, and full is defined as that you don't feel that you want to eat more now, doesn't mean you have to feel full and bloated and weighed down, etc. No, as long as you don't feel that you want to eat more, then according to the basic halacha, you're allowed to bench, even if it's 2 hours later or 3 hours later. You're allowed to still say Birchas Hamazon. Right. So again, the basic for bread, challah, is 72 minutes. And if you're not hungry, then you have longer than that until you feel that you're hungry. Once you feel that you're hungry, it is too late. The same thing, like just using, I think the simplest way is to using the restroom, using the bathroom as an example. Meaning, if you forgot to say Asher Yotzar, as long as you don't feel you need to use the bathroom, then your time has not expired. So the same thing with bread. As long as you don't feel hungry, your time has not expired, and you're allowed to say Berachos Hamazon. However, the best is to make sure you do it within 72 minutes. All right. Let's say you're not sure. And the best thing to do is to take more bread and eat it a kezayis worth, and then like this, for sure you have to make another Birchas Hamazon. Right? That's going to come up a lot in these situations. Like we said, you want to make sure you're not making brachas unnecessarily. So an eitzah, right? A simple way out of it is just to eat more. And for me, it's no problem. I like eating more. There's a lot. I end up eating a lot more during the day and drinking a lot more because I'm just not sure what's going on. So it's okay, I'll just eat more. I know for many, it's not so simple to eat and to eat more. But that would be the simplest dates. And now, do you need to wash again, and do you need to say hamotzi? So if you didn't plan on eating anymore, then really you do need to say hamotzi. So, and you need to wash your hands if you're not sure if your hands touch your shoes or anything dirty, so then you would have to wash your hands. If you're not sure, then I would tell you to make sure you touch your shoes. Right? Meaning, if you're not sure whether your hands were clean, this is another example. And I know certain gedolim are makpid that before they wash their hands for bread, they touch their shoes. Like this, they know with 100% certainty they have to wash their hands. Meaning, for example, somebody washes their hands in the morning, and then you daven, and then you decide you want to eat bread. So, and you know that you daven, so you didn't touch shoes. So now maybe your washing of your hands in the morning covered you for the bread. So in order to make sure that it definitely didn't cover you for the bread, say you touch your shoes. I am not telling anybody to do this. I'm just using this as an example of what some people do to avoid making an unnecessary bracha. So basically, again, if it's past 70, if it's within 72 minutes of eating bread, you can say Birchas Hamazon, no problem. If you after 72 minutes, if you're 100% sure that you are not hungry, you can say Birchas Hamazon, no problem. Again, should you try and make sure to bench within 72 minutes? 100%. But if you didn't and you don't feel hungry, you can bench with 100% certainty. We're talking about where somebody is not sure. So if you're not sure, then eat more bread and make hamotzi on that bread and wash your hands if you think it's necessary. If you're not sure whether you touched anything that requires washing the hands, then either don't make a bracha or touch your shoes, and then for sure you need to make a bracha, right? And then you can make Birchas Hamazon. Now that's for bread. For mezainis, meaning mezainis foods or shahakal foods, what you would do is, again, if you're full, then again you can, as long as you're feeling full, then it's not a problem. But when it's foods that are, let's say it's more shahakal foods like chocolate or rice, because rice is not considered mazanis, then it's really preferably to be a half hour, right? So again, if you're eating other foods, try and make your bracha achrona within a half hour. If not, then 72 minutes. But it could very well be that if it took longer than a half hour and you're a little doubtful, then what you should do is you should get another food. Let's say it's bar nefashos, let's say it's chocolate, and you realize that it's after a half hour. Now, the reason there's a difference between bread and other foods is because bread is usually filling. and other foods are not necessarily as filling. So therefore, it's a little bit stricter. So if you know that it's been 35, 40 minutes since you since you ate your food, and you could be you're hungry because a lot of times it doesn't fill you up like bread does. So then you should take another food and drink it. And then like this, you won't have a shiloh, right? Now, by a large meal, it's more makel. Because if you let's say you're sitting by the table, this could happen sometimes. You have Yom Tov meal and everybody's sort of long Friday, winter Friday night, and everybody's sitting around the table, Baruch Hashem, and they're singing and they're talking, and you get into the deep philosophical conversations, etc. And then you turn around and you realize it's been a few hours since you ate. So the din is me'ikar din, since you're sitting at the table and you're sitting by that meal, then you're really allowed to say Birchas Hamazon, even though it's been many hours. But and some say, some places can say even up to 5 hours. It's okay. But it would be better, it would, if you know you're having the situation, it would be better to make sure you have something to eat within 72 minutes. I don't think this is so negay, but this could happen by chasanas, especially Hasidic chasanas, where they can sometimes have mitzvatans and they end up doing it before they bench. Meaning, if you have most weddings, they eat the main course, and then they'll have a dance, and then there's more pictures, and then another dance, and people haven't eaten, and all of a sudden it's an hour and a half, 2 hours, and nobody's eaten anything. So can you bench? So really, that's it's not a problem because it's considered all by the meal. But the best thing to do, and I was by a chasana that did this 2 weeks ago. After they had the first dance, then they ate the meal, and then they benched, and then they had the second dance, which halachically is much more preferred. I don't know why more people don't do that. Okay, so now that's on food. Oh, we're almost at the end. Okay, on drink is a little bit different, right? So we did bread and we did other foods. Now drinking is stricter because drinking we get thirsty much faster, much more often than we do when we're hungry. So then when we're eating food. So the drinking, as long as you're not thirsty, you could still make the bracha achrona. So if you realize that you drank a coffee and then you had to run out and do a carpool or something like that, and then you say, oh, I didn't make a bar nefashos, so then you can still make a bar nefashos as long as you're not thirsty. Once you're thirsty, then you cannot make the bracha achrona. The time expired. If you're not sure, then if it's within a half hour, you're allowed to make the bracha achrona. If it's more than a half hour, then what you should do is drink more. Make a bracha and drink more, and then you're okay. All right. Let's say you know you're going to be drinking all day, which okay, and we'll discuss this next week. Then the question is, what's the best way of doing that so that you don't have any problems? All right. Okay, so drink again, just to just clarify. So drinking is as long as you're not thirsty, you can make a bracha achrona. If not, then you have a half hour, not 70. There's no 72 minutes by drinking, at least according to the way we paskin. And then if you're not sure, like we said, if you're not sure, then we don't want anybody making brachas for not necessarily. So you take another drink, and that would be okay. Okay, so let me read some questions here. Okay, so if you're a large kiddush in a shul, do you have to eat mazonos to be yotze kiddush? Yes, I think we discussed that 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Yes, you need to have mazonos in order to be yotze kiddush. If you did not have mazonos to be by the kiddush, then your whole kiddush is no good, and you have to make a new kiddush. Yes, a hot drink is different than food because you may drink it too slow. We said when the next question is also how much water do you need to drink to make a bar nefashos? We say about 3 ounces within a minute or two. I think 2 weeks ago, I think the videos, I should have said this, the videos / audios of the previous shurim are on the website, tystein.com. We discussed the coffee 2 weeks ago, I think. I'm going to answer anyways. Don't want any, please, thank you for asking because these things need constant review. But if you want the full subject, I think it was 2 weeks ago. I think 3 weeks ago on the kiddush and 2 weeks ago on the drink, but I'm not sure. But so the drinking is debatable because is it the normal way to drink a coffee is to sip it? So some say you can make bracha achron on that even if you don't have 3 ounces, 3.3 ounces within a minute or two. But it's a machlokes. So like we said, you should try and either leave some till later so you could have 3 ounces at once, 3.3 ounces at once. Like this, you don't have any shaila. But basically, water, soda, and all that, it's about 3.3 ounces within a minute or two. Now, the reason why you need to make hamotzi again is because you stopped eating. So once you stop eating, which we'll discuss this Bez Hashem next week, like for example, you get ready to bench and you wash my machron, and then somebody brings out a new fresh bread. Your neighbor brings over new fresh bread. In that case, you have to make a new hamotzi. Once a person decides they're done eating, then they have to make a new bracha on any new food that comes. So that's why you need to make a new hamotzi. If you touch your shoes and you're washing for bread anyways, and you're just not sure, so then we know, yes, I thank you for asking this question. If you touch your shoes during the day and you're not eating bread, of course, you don't make a bracha. I thank you for that clarification. Of course, let's make that very clear. When you, during the day, you touch your shoes and you need to make a bracha, so you wash your hands. But we're talking about when you're washing for bread, meaning let's say somebody just touched their shoes by mistake and then washed their hands. Then 5 minutes later, they decide they're going to eat bread. How can you go make a bracha on the Netilas Yadayim because you washed your hands if your hands were just washed, right? And meaning you need to, the reason why we wash our hands is because our hands might be dirty. But if you just washed your hands 5 minutes ago, right, and then you talked and you schmoozed and you know your hands were clean the entire time, you didn't touch anything, so how can you go wash your hands and make a bracha? So because of that, what you do is you touch your shoes. Now you know your hands are not clean. And since you're washing for bread, you most definitely need a bracha. I hope I'm being clear. Regularly, when you are touching your shoes and you wash your hands, you do not need a bracha. But when you touch your shoes and you're washing your hands for bread, then you most certainly do need a bracha. We're saying that you're not sure if your hands were 100% clean. So in order to safely make a bracha saying you were not sure, meaning you were not sure your hands, you're about to eat bread, and then you realize, 1 second, I went to the bathroom 5 minutes ago and I washed my hands. So my hands are really clean. So why am I washing my hands again for bread? The answer is because the Chachamim said we have to wash for bread, but you may not need to have washed your hands. So washing your hands 100% is necessary. Just you may not have to make a bracha because you may not have really needed to wash your hands. So in order to safely know that you need to wash your hands, you touch your shoes. I hope that's being clear. If I'm not clear, please post that. With shahakol, so you need to make a new bracha. Yes, if you didn't have in mind that you were drinking anymore, then you would need to make a new bracha. But it's debatable. So really, what you should do is take a different shahakol than you had. Meaning, if you drank a coffee, right, and now you're going to drink, and now you're not sure if too much time expired, you're not sure if you're thirsty. So what you do is don't drink another coffee because maybe that bracha is covered by your first, but drink a tea or drink orange juice or something like that. Again, I told you, and I'm sorry if it's confusing, but we're always trying to save ourselves from potentially making brachas that were not necessary. So that's why we're saying in those cases where you're not supposed to drink more. So with the bread, if it's been like an hour or an hour and a half and you've been running around the house and etc., doing those type of things, so then you would need to wash your hands again because you have no idea if they touched something that wasn't clean, and then you maybe make a netilas anayim, but if you're not sure, touch your shoes. And yes, hamotzi, but again, the hamotzi would only be made if you, in your mind, showed that you were done eating. But if you didn't do anything in your mind, then you were just running around the house and you really left some of the bread on the table because you just got so distracted, let's call it distracted. So then you wouldn't have to make a new hamotzi. So washing hands for shoes does not require a cup. That I think is also a few weeks before that. Is also in the shir, does not require a washing cup for shoes. Almost nothing requires a washing cup. I was supposed to come out with the PDF and post it. I've been a little behind. So I need to work on that a little bit more. Okay, thank you for listening. We should have a good Tvach, and we should have B'suras Tovos, and Bez Hashem next week we'll continue with these brachas again. If anybody during the week gets confused, I imagine most have my number. If not, get it from somebody, and we'll discuss it to try and make sure everybody is clear. Okay, good Tvach and a good year.